Welcome to the Unraveling the Scriptures channel. An often forgotten figure, but equally important, Keturah. Today, we'll embark on a fascinating journey through Bible history to discover more about this character. While many are familiar with the central stories of the Bible, secondary characters like Keturah often remain in the shadows. However, his actions and influence had a profound impact on the biblical landscape and deserve to be explored. Several characters mentioned in biblical scriptures receive only brief mentions, usually occupying 2 or 3 verses. To truly understand their origins, it is necessary to delve into the study of Aramaic and Hebrew in order to gain a deeper understanding of their lives, ancestry, and the essence that defines them. Today, I invite all of you to join me on this journey of exploration. Let's discover together the origin of an intriguing biblical figure, Keturah, the second wife of Abraham and, notably, the mother of the Saudi nation. Be sure to stick around until the end to capture the full depth of this often overlooked story. Without further ado, let's start exploring Keturah's inspiring life and legacy. Who was Keturah, the second wife of Abraham? Undoubtedly, one enigmatic female figure from the Old Testament is Keturah. Despite the many controversies surrounding her, I will present her true story and origin. Keturah was the second wife of the biblical patriarch Abraham, connected to both Arab and Jewish peoples. The Bible recounts that initially, Keturah was a concubine of Abraham following the passing of Sarah. As you probably already know, Sarah is one of the most prominent figures in the Old Testament of the Bible. She is primarily known as the wife of Abraham and the mother of Isaac, who became one of the patriarchs of the Jewish and Arab nations. Sarah's story is central to the narratives in the book of Genesis, and her name was originally Sarai, later changed by God to Sarah. Abraham later elevated Keturah to the status of a wife, a considerable period after Sarah's death. It's crucial to emphasize that Keturah and Hagar should not be confused. Hagar was the Egyptian maidservant, whereas Keturah is a distinct figure with her own story. Despite many theologians mistakenly associating Keturah with Hagar, their narratives and origins trace back to different peoples. Undoubtedly, Keturah is not the same figure as the Egyptian Hagar. Hagar was a short-lived concubine for Abraham, fulfilling a request from his first and beloved wife, Sarah. When Sarah couldn't conceive a child, she gave Hagar to Abraham with the intention that Hagar would bear a child with him. This practice was culturally accepted at the time for a woman to have children through a servant when facing infertility issues. Hagar conceived and gave birth to a son, whom they named Ishmael, a patriarch who became an ancestor of a significant portion of Arabs. However, once Hagar became pregnant, relations between her and Sarah began to deteriorate. Sarah began to treat Hagar with contempt, and Hagar fled to the desert, where an angel of the Lord found her. If you're interested, we can create a video about Hagar, discussing her origins and history. Let us know in the comments if you'd like such a video. Now, who was Keturah, in fact? The answer is that she was indeed the second wife of Abraham. However, to discover her origins, the first step is to explore her etymology, as her name reveals her provenance and ethnic origin. The name Keturah points to her Aramean origin. It's important to highlight that Keturah was neither Egyptian nor a Canaanite woman. As we have knowledge about ancient civilizations, something we've covered in various previous videos on this channel, I invite you to join us in other videos where we will continue to learn about topics related to the scriptures. It's notable that names carry within them the roots of ancient peoples and their ethnicities, revealing which ethnic group they belong to. Hebrew names indicate the Hebrew people, Arabic names denote the Arab people, and names in African languages trace back to African origin. Analyzing the name Keturah, we can observe its Aramaic origin. The meaning of this name is committed, and it can also be interpreted as bound or promised. This leads us to understand that Keturah, the second wife of Abraham, was not Canaanite or Egyptian. She was, in fact, of Aramean origin, as her name indicates. It's interesting to note that at a certain point, Keturah joined Rebekah, who was already committed to Isaac. Keturah likely played the role of a lady-in-waiting or servant to Rebekah. This fits into the context where Rebekah was led to Isaac and received gifts from her father Bethuel, including servants and possibly Keturah as a lady-in-waiting. This practice was common in that era and among the Semitic peoples to which Abraham, Rebekah, and other biblical figures belonged. This custom, which involved giving gifts when daughters got married, was deeply embedded in the context of Semitic tribalism and represented a tradition that permeated these ancient cultures. An excellent example to illustrate this dynamic is the case of Zilpah and Bilhah, who were Aramean-born ladies-in-waiting in service to Rachel and Leah. Zilpah was Leah's servant, who was one of Jacob's wives. Zilpah's story is mainly associated with the rivalry between Jacob's two wives, Leah and Rachel, and the competition to have children. As Leah was struggling to conceive, she gave Zilpah to Jacob as a concubine, hoping that Zilpah could bear children on Leah's behalf. Bilhah was Rachel's servant, Jacob's beloved wife. Much like Zilpah, Bilhah's story is also tied to the rivalry between the wives. Rachel, initially infertile, also offered her servant Bilhah to Jacob so that she could have children in her name. These ladies were assigned to serve Rachel and Leah, demonstrating a pattern that fits within the context of Semitic tribalism. In this tradition, parents provided gifts or dowries for their daughters, as a kind of contribution to the marriage. Chapters 24 and 25 of the book of Genesis exemplify this practice. Abraham, aware of the cultural practices of his people, sought a wife for Isaac who wasn't Canaanite, as he had a strong preference for Semitic peoples. He instructed his servant Eliezer not to choose a Canaanite wife for Isaac, but rather from his own kin. Here, kin refers to the Semitic peoples, just like Abraham. He would refuse to marry Canaanite women, showcasing the Semitic concept that permeated his culture. This principle was motivated by the fact that Canaanite and Egyptian women often worshipped different gods, maintained distinct cultures, and had different customs. However, Semitic women, when marrying Semitic men, tended to adopt the husband's faith instead of introducing foreign gods into the home. This was a fundamental concept, as the belief in a single god was crucial within this Semitic perspective. This approach is also reflected in the instructions given to the tribes of Israel to avoid marrying people from the land of Canaan and other foreign cultures. Yes, the principle was to marry Israelite women, from the land of Israel, and not those who were not descendants of the Semitic people. We see this in examples like Isaac, who instructed Jacob not to marry Canaanite women but women from the land of Aram. He emphasizes this during his blessing to Jacob. This guidance stems from the fact that the Arameans were also Semitic peoples, sharing a similar ethnic lineage with the descendants of Abraham. It's worth noting that the Chaldeans, from where Abraham originated, have origins in the lineage of Arpachshad, the brother of Aram, and both were sons of Shem. Therefore, both Arameans and Chaldeans belonged to the Semitic ethnic group. The sin that Abraham committed by lying with Hagar was not only related to marriage but also to religious and ethnic commitment. The divine promise was that Abraham would become the father of a great nation, a numerous and uncountable people. By lying with a woman who was not from his own people and faith, Abraham disobeyed the principle of tribalism and also God's promise. His action was a lack of faith in God, as even in the face of Sarah's advanced age, God promised that she would give birth to Isaac. Keturah became Abraham's wife, probably when he was between 120 and 130 years old. It's important to remember that Abraham lived to be 175 years old. With Keturah, Abraham had 6 sons, Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. Among these sons, the most notable was Midian, who became the ancestor of the Midianites. These 6 sons were responsible for giving rise to the 6 Semitic tribes of the Middle East. These tribes occupied the region now known as Saudi Arabia. The Arabs, inhabitants of Saudi Arabia, descend from the 6 Semitic Arabian tribes that originate from the lineage of Abraham and Keturah. Therefore, Keturah can be considered the symbolic mother of the Saudi nation. It's important to observe that the descendants of Keturah and Abraham shared a Semitic ethnic and linguistic heritage, representing a continuity of the pure Semitic lineage. Many years later, the descendants of the 6 Keturahite tribes, also known as the Midianites, mixed with the descendants of the Ishmaelites, from the lineage of Ishmael, Abraham's son, with Hagar. This encounter resulted in the formation of a great nation. However, the details of this story will be addressed in an upcoming video. I hope you all have enjoyed this video. We will continue to post more content regularly, exploring various topics related to the origins of peoples and ancient languages. This video was made due to many requests from you in the comments, so please continue suggesting more characters, peoples, and other scripture-related topics you're interested in for future videos. I suggest you stay on our channel with the video that is appearing on your screen now. See you soon.